Good evening. I'm Irene Sampson from the League of Women Voters in Palo Alto, and I will be moderating this debate tonight on Palo Alto's Measure A, the business license tax. The question which will be on your ballot, in addition to the candidates for City Council, reads, and I quote, "Should the Palo Alto Municipal Code be amended to establish a business license tax in order to help maintain the city's ability to fund basic city services? Because it is a general tax with revenues to be deposited in the city's general fund, it requires a simple majority vote of those people voting on it to pass." We are pleased to have with us to debate the issue Peter Dreckmeyer, Mayor of Palo Alto, who will be arguing in favor of Measure A, and Skip Justman, Chair of the Government Action Committee of the Chamber of Commerce, who will be arguing against Measure A. They will each have 5 minutes to present their original arguments, followed by 5 minutes each for rebuttal statements. After that, I will ask a question or two, with each debater having 1 minute to respond. Mayor Dreckmeyer will speak first, followed by Mr. Justman. They will speak in reverse order for the rebuttals. Mayor Dreckmeyer.
Well, thank you very much, Irene, and I want to thank the Media Center and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. It's great to be here, although I have to tell you, with 2 months left on the City Council, there are a lot of things I'd rather be focusing on than the business license tax. But the reason I'm here is because passage of Measure A is critical to the future of Palo Alto. The city has a $10 million annual deficit, and the plan is to fill that gap through 3 sources. One is cutting city expenses, and we've cut $3.7 million this year, including 20 staff positions. We're hoping to get a third of that through reductions in employee benefits and compensation, and we're in very tough negotiations with SEIU right now. And then the third would come from the business license tax. So we're expecting about $3 million from Measure A. Now, no one in Palo Alto likes to be surprised, and no one likes to have services cut. But the bottom line is we're going to have to fill that $3 million somehow. So some of the programs that are at risk are funding for libraries, for parks and recreation, youth and senior programs. In addition, our disaster preparedness division of the fire department, city shuttle service, traffic team and school resource officer, crime analysis program, these are all at risk. In addition, infrastructure, and we have a $450 million backlog. So Measure A is critical for meeting our city's financial needs for the future. I just want to say that when we were working on Measure A, the business community weighed in. And there were a number of meetings through our finance committee and then the city council. And the things we heard from the business community were, one, they wanted a business license tax that was based on per employee versus gross sales. And we listened to that. And that's how the business license tax has played out. Second is that they wanted businesses, retail, and hotels that pay sales tax and help the city out that way to be charged less. So we did that. And the third is they felt that the timing wasn't right. So we postponed implementation of the business license tax until 2011, and we hope the economy will be better at that time. So the way it works out is every business will pay $75 for the first employee. If it's retail or hotel, it's $34 for each additional employee. If it's professional business services, it's $95 for each additional employee. So for the first time, we're going to be getting a tax from professionals like lawyers and accountants and venture capitalists that don't contribute any sales tax to the general fund. And those services will be charged higher than retail. The Measure A, the business license tax, is fair. Every other local city has a business license tax, and actually 99% of the cities in California have a business license tax or a comparable program. So we really are an anomaly when it comes to this. Prior to Proposition 13, businesses paid about 2/3 of property taxes. Now it's down to about 1/3. So a lot more of that burden is being picked up by residents. We don't feel that's fair. And it's a very modest rate. For a sole proprietorship, it would be $75 per year. And as an example, a restaurant with 10 employees, full-time equivalents, it would be $380 a year. Nonprofits would not pay into the business license tax. And we feel that it's time for the business community to contribute a little bit more to the city. The residents have continually voted to tax themselves. We have approved school parcel taxes. Last year we approved the library bond, and it's time for the business community to do more. So I would like to encourage people to visit our website, which is www.savepaloaltoservices.org. And finally, I'll just say that Palo Alto is a very desirable place to do business. We have higher rents in Palo Alto and lower vacancies than surrounding communities. Our utilities are 10% cheaper than surrounding communities, and that saves businesses thousands of dollars per year. So businesses are not going to go away for a very nominal business license tax, and many businesses are supporting the tax, feeling it's their opportunity to contribute more to the future of Palo Alto. So I encourage everyone to vote yes on Measure A, and again, please visit our website at savepaloaltoservices.org.
Thank you, Mayor Meyer, and now Mr. Justin.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Elliot Margulies and the Mid-Peninsula Community Media Center for putting on this event, and of course Irene Sampson for moderating the event. Measure A is a sweetheart deal for big corporations in Palo Alto. The fine print details of Measure A allow big corporations to elect to pay a so-called maximum of $30,000. Now, when I refer to the details of Measure A, I'll be referring to pages in the voter information pamphlet that you all received. So I'll give you the page numbers from the voter information pamphlet so you can verify the details that I'm describing to you. Because of the so-called cap on big businesses that allows them to elect to pay a so-called maximum of $30,000, most of the tax, of the $3 million tax, 80% is going to be paid by small businesses and at-home businesses because there just aren't enough big corporations to collect $3 million from. Now, City Council candidate Greg Scharf has described the details of Measure A as poorly drafted and overbroad, and candidate John Hackman has demonstrated in the debates that the details of Measure A are extremely onerous. In order to make up the revenue shortfall, because big businesses have an election to pay $30,000, the Measure A creates a large net, and this net will fall heavily upon small businesses and at-home businesses. The details of Measure A provide, and I quote from page 10 of the voter information pamphlet, all and every kind of calling, whether or not conducted at a profit, is a business and will be subject to the business tax. Now, the business tax identifies specifically certain businesses, professional services, which would be paying $95 for each additional employee, retail and hotel, which is paying $34 for each additional employee, personal services like car repairs would pay $34 for each additional employee. But any business not specified in the above categories is taxed at the highest rate of $95 per each additional employee. This is at page 15 of the voter information pamphlet. Many home businesses will be taxed at the highest rate. Minors conducting business from home are required to file a statement under penalty of perjury to claim an exemption from the business tax. This can be found at pages 15 and 17 of the voter information pamphlet. If minors help their parents with a home business, then a tax is due for the minor. This is at pages 10 and 17. If a home business forgets to renew their business tax, then they will be subject to penalties and interest, and there will be no notices of the renewal payment. The business tax administrator will be able to enter a place of business, including a home, to demand to see the license, examine books and records, and cross-examine people under penalty of perjury regarding their business license obligations. Any information collected can be shared with federal, state, and county tax officials. The business tax does not earmark money for schools, parks, or libraries, nor does it earmark money to help businesses. We currently have a 14% vacancy rate, which is the highest. Palo Alto's business tax will be the highest tax in Santa Clara County, and yet it will only raise about 1% of the annual revenues. The business tax will not save the city's or solve the city's business crisis. It may even drive away businesses. Candidate John Hackman has pointed out that there's an apportionment tax at page 19 of the voter information pamphlet that requires people out of town who do business here to pay a tax. This will encourage them not to stay in Palo Alto hotels and will encourage them to stay in hotels in Mountain View and other locations. I think when you read the business tax details, the details of Measure A, which are in your voter information pamphlet, you'll agree with me that the devil wrote the details in this bill.
Thank you. And now you have the opportunity to rebut what your opponent has said. And Mr. Jessman, you go first.
Thank you. The business tax is not fair. It's a burden on the small businesses and the home businesses, puts them in danger of audits and interrogations from city administrators. It puts minors at risk to commit a misdemeanor if they don't file a statement under penalty of perjury to be exempt from the business license tax. And of course, everyone's at risk if they don't renew it in the absence of a bill from the city and forget to renew it. They'll all be subject to fines and assessments. The only monies earmarked from the business license tax are $250,000 a year to enforce the business tax, and that budget is not limited or capped in any way. So we have a situation where we don't have monies earmarked for the services we cherish. Now, there has been statements made that if Measure A doesn't pass, that city services will be cut. I'd like to remind everybody that at the Palo Alto Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum, the candidates were asked, if Measure A does not pass, what services would you cut? And no candidate volunteered to vote for a cut in services. So I think it's just scare tactics to say that services are going to be cut if Measure A doesn't pass. Measure A isn't going to solve the problem, and no candidate or city council member is going to vote to cut funding to the schools. And so I think any argument that school funding will be cut is just a scare tactic. Now, we'll be sending out a postcard this week to the voters that puts forth the position of small business owners in this community. So look for our postcard in your mailbox. We have several small businesses represented. The reality is that as I've been campaigning against Measure A and talked to small businesses, the small businesses feel completely neglected. They feel punished. They feel burdened. They're afraid of the record keeping that would be associated with this tax. The tax for a small business is particularly onerous because the tax on a small business requires them to keep track of the hours of their employees. A small business person, out of necessity, uses temporary employees, part-time employees, and independent contractors. And in that situation, they'll be required to total up all the hours of those part-time, temporary, independent contractors, divide it by the magic number 2080, and that's going to determine their taxes. Now, I've talked to small business people who've told me they don't keep records of the number of hours of every part-time employee and independent contractor who works for them. So it would require a whole new set of books for them to keep. And for small businesses and home businesses, the idea that the city can show up at their doorstep, demand to come in, examine their books and records, and then cross-examine them under penalty of perjury is just frightening, to say the least. Not only are the small businesses and the home businesses frightened, but I have received letters and emails from residents who, although they don't have a full-time self-employment or a full-time small business, they do try to supplement their income with business activities. Because remember, the definition of business is all and every kind of calling, whether or not conducted at a profit, is a business under Measure A. So I have people who are afraid that if they do a little tutoring, a teaching in their home, or one senior citizen even said that if times were tough and she had to take in washing and ironing and mending, she was darned if she was going to let some city employee come in and look at her books regarding her little supplemental income. So we have a whole group of people who in hard times are trying to supplement their income with business activities, who suddenly are beginning to realize they're going to be subject to this tax, possibly be put in the position of committing misdemeanors, and then having the city be able to audit and investigate their activities. And the whole idea of required minors to file a statement under penalty of perjury is absurd, because the poor minor who forgets to do that has suddenly committed a misdemeanor. So Measure A is just poorly drafted. The details are complicated even for attorneys to figure out, and I think it would be inappropriate to burden the small businesses and residents of Palo Alto with this tax that would be a financial nightmare for them, or at least a compliance nightmare. Thank you.
Mayor Dreckmeyer, your turn to rebut.
Well, my opponent alluded to scare tactics, and I would say that's exactly what they are using here. Palo Alto's business license tax is based on business license taxes throughout the state. And remember, 99% of cities in California have these. So it's not a lot different. We're not hearing about all these problems that were just alluded to. That's simply not going to be the case. Palo Alto's business license tax will be less than or comparable to Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, Belmont, San Mateo. There are a lot of other cities out there that have higher taxes than we do. It's fair to small businesses because it's based on employee count. There is a cap, but there are only 11 businesses in Palo Alto that will hit that cap. And my opponent made a mistake in saying 80% of the burden would be picked up by small businesses. That's not the case. We have 4,900 businesses in Palo Alto that we have data for. The 185 largest businesses with 50 employees or more, will pick up 51% of the business license tax. So that's 185 large businesses out of 4,900 that would pick up the majority of it. It's not going to be a burden, because basically the information that employers will need is information they provide in their payroll taxes. Any program would easily provide that. And if they have a lot of part-time employees, they basically just add up the hours, divide by 2,080, and that counts as a full-time equivalent. Very, very easy to do. The city has absolutely no intentions of home raids. I go on the record saying that's never, ever going to happen. The city simply doesn't have the resources to do that. We're going to have 2.5 people working on this, and they're not going to spend a lot of city resources to go in and shake out $75 from a home business. Simply not going to happen. Minors are excluded from the business license tax. It's very clearly stated. Mr. Justman is concerned that they have to fill out a waiver, but that's not going to be the case. We can clean up the language of the business license tax, and we'll make that very, very clear. No worries about that. And that's really one nice thing about the business license tax. The city can't go and raise it without a vote of the people, but can change it to make it easier on business. And we're always listening to businesses and getting their feedback. And as I mentioned before, we've made a lot of changes to the business license tax to make it easier on businesses. They were the ones who wanted the per employee head count because of the ease of producing that information. The tax is self-reporting. We're not going to go hound people. We're going to count on them on the honor system. Anyone who is making a very, very small profit or no profit at all, that's considered a hobby, and that's excluded from the business license tax. That's not going to be a problem. All the information will be confidential. Only city staff will have access to that. And when it comes down to what's going to happen if Measure A fails, well, the city has cut most of the fat, and we're always looking for other opportunities. Right now we're in negotiations with SEIU, our biggest labor organization, and it's been very contentious. We've had 26 different meetings. We had a one-day strike before. There might be another strike coming up. They're very reticent to give up any of their benefits, whether it's pension or medical, but the city is standing very firm because we have a commitment to our citizens that we're going to make up 1/3 of this budget deficit through employee compensation, 1/3 through cuts that we've already made, and 1/3 through the business license tax. So this is really key, a piece of that three-legged stool that's going to help the city's finances in the future. Employees, morale has been down because of this tense debate over the future of their their benefits. We're losing some employees to early retirement, or they're going to other cities. So a lot of people say, hey, let's just reduce pensions and medical. That's very, very challenging to do. These employees have contracts with us. Looking forward, we can change the plan. We're trying to do that. We're trying to negotiate. We're doing everything in our power, but we really do need the business license tax. So I ask you, learn more about it, savepaloaltoservices.org. Palo Alto, we are not a community that goes and beats down doors to shake out $75. We're going to work with the business community. We're going to educate them. We've got great staff who's working on this. And the scare tactics just simply are not going to ever come to fruition. We're certainly going to work with businesses to make this work. I just want to add that the city is doing a number of things to support the business community. Earlier this year, Palo Alto supported the senior games here in Palo Alto, brought millions of dollars to hotels and restaurants in Palo Alto. We're working on a financing program right now to help small businesses become energy efficient and save money on their energy bills. That's part of our climate protection plan, as well as economic prosperity. So we're working hard with the business community. We ask them to be part of our solution in meeting our budget deficit. Thank you.
Thank both of you, and now we have a couple of questions. And the first one will be Mayor Dreckmeyer gets the first minute to answer, and then Mr. Justman will follow. The question: what has been the experience of other cities with comparable business license tax rates, and what has been their experience?
Well, the truth is you don't hear a lot about it because there aren't problems. Businesses expect to pay a business license tax. There's only 3 other cities in all of California that don't have a business license tax, and they're not in this area. So businesses expect it and accept it. And we really haven't heard of any other problems. It brings in revenue for the cities. It creates a more diverse portfolio. This year, the reason we're really struggling is because sales tax is down and property tax is down. The business license tax is something that cannot be touched by the state. And in addition to the $10 million deficit we're facing, the state has just borrowed $2.4 million from our property taxes. We hope to get that back in a few years. That's $2.4 million that we need to make up now. So the business license tax creates a diverse portfolio, and it's one more thing that can help us weather these tough economic times.
Mr. Justman?
Other cities don't attempt to collect $3 and $4 million from their local small businesses or home businesses. So of course there's no outcry against them because it's just basically a business registry cost recovery situation. Palo Alto is aggressively seeking to raise significant revenues from the business community, and that's not fair because, as candidate Greg Scharf points out in his literature, in the last 5 years, city pension costs have gone up 86%. So if your city pension costs are going up 86%, it's not appropriate then to go to this business community and ask them to contribute towards a 1/3 revenue increase or increase revenues by 1/3 through them. The businesses in Palo Alto didn't cause the revenue crisis we're in. We didn't get here by overspending on parks and libraries.
The second question, and we will let Mr. Justman start on this one. What other alternatives could the city pursue for needed revenues, and why is a business license tax either better or worse?
I have long advocated that we need to create nonprofit public partnerships for the cherished services and assets that we have in our community. We've had a long tradition of creating nonprofit public partnerships for services. We could do that with the Junior Museum. We could do it with the parks. The residents of Palo Alto and the businesses have always been willing to step forward and contribute towards services. The business community is contributing significant money to redo Litton Plaza. But we need to make this a situation where we work together and we're not being dictated to by the city council or the city government. If you ask the business community to contribute for Litton Plaza or a park, we can create nonprofit public partnerships that can do the job and get things done. We don't need to create an abusive and mandatory tax that puts us at risk.
Mr.
Well,
Druckmeyer?
we already have a number of public-private partnerships, and Lytton Plaza is a great example. The business community came to the city and said, we really want to upgrade this park. We'll share the cost with you. And that put it to the front of the line. So it was another way that the city helped businesses in downtown, albeit that they helped the city as well. It was a real partnership. I mentioned that 2/3 of the deficit is going to be filled through cutting expenses, and that's something that the city is very committed to. Next Monday night, we have a great opportunity for something I call entrepreneurial government. We're going to be discussing a composting operation in Palo Alto that would convert all of our food waste, our yard waste, and maybe even sewage sludge into energy, producing enough biogas to fuel 1,900 vehicles or 1,300 homes. I think that's a great way to generate revenue at the local level. We have our own utility. We've saved a lot of money through that, and here's a chance to convert waste into a resource. So that's something I've been pushing for.
I think we have time for a third question. So this will go first to Mayor Druckmeyer. Capsulize the top 3 reasons that you think this tax is either fair or unfair.
Well, it's fair because it's comparable to other cities in the area. I mentioned Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, San Mateo, and Belmont. San Francisco's is considerably higher, and we're one of 4 cities in the whole state that doesn't have a business license tax. We listened to the business community. We made it per employee, so smaller businesses pay less, businesses with more employees pay more, and the rate is very fair. Yes, we're going to generate $3 million in Palo Alto. It's because we have so many businesses here. Businesses want to locate in Palo Alto, and part of it is that it's just a wonderful community with great services and programs. Another is that we have great utility rates, and there's a lot of reasons for businesses to come here. Tesla just moved to Palo Alto. They could have gone anywhere. So this is a very desirable place, and many businesses are willing to step up and help keep it that way. We appreciate it.
Well, first, Measure A does not earmark any monies for parks or services that we cherish, and the only earmark is for enforcement and collection, $250,000. And Mayor Druckmeyer has admitted they're going to staff it with 2.5 full-time equivalent employees. So we have 2.5 full-time equivalent employees with a budget of $250,000 to enforce it, and yet we're told it won't be enforced. It's going to be self-reporting honor system. Well, I don't feel comfortable trusting the city on this issue. I've seen what happened at the Children's Theater, and I don't feel comfortable with the promises that Measure A will be cleaned up if it's passed. So Mayor Druckmeyer has already indicated that it needs to be cleaned up. He said he will advocate or work to clean it up. I think we don't want to pass it and then clean it up. I think we want to defeat it and have the city come back with something that is appropriate and not threatening to small businesses.
Thank you both for being here this evening and sharing ideas with us. The video of this of this event will be published online and linked to smartvoter.org. And most of all, I want to say to all of you who are here and those of you who are listening and watching at home or other places, most of all, be sure to remember to vote before or on November 3rd. Thank you.
Now we're going to arm wrestle, right?
Yeah, unfair advantage. Hey, nice job.